It's 1983. The racehorse Shergar is kidnapped in County Kildare. The Concorde paid its first visit to Dublin, and the Eighth Amendment was voted into the Irish Constitution.
Back in 1951, Pope Pius XII said, "Never and in no case has the Church taught that the life of a child must be preferred to that of the mother."
The referendum led to a constitutional amendment recognising the right to life of the unborn child.
I thought this morning's sermon was the real thing. You know, there was no one side or the other. It was just telling people how to make up their minds. I'm disgusted.
With a referendum looming in May for this year, as someone who is extremely vocally pro-choice, I wanted to reflect back on the story of the Eighth Amendment, as well as finding out more about the opposing side of the ongoing debate and their drive behind their opinions.
We're marching because we believe that women should have the bodily autonomy to make choices for themselves when it comes to pregnancy and abortion.
I'm marching today because I believe that I should have the right to choose what goes on with my body.
It can be difficult, particularly in college campuses at the moment, but I don't think that it's an entirely one-sided debate for young people and everybody's on the pro-repeal side.
Unfortunately, the truth is not being heard by everybody.
Abortion has been illegal in Ireland since the state was founded. In 1861, the British Offences Act was introduced. This meant that if an abortion was carried out, it was punishable by penal servitude, which later became life in prison. The rise of women travelling to the UK to terminate their pregnancies reached a height of 3,800 in 1981. It is estimated that a total of 10 women a day travelled to the UK in 2014 to abort their child, and a total of 1,017 abortion pills were seized at customs in Dublin Airport in 2014. This was almost double that found in 2013. The first well-known case involving the conflict of the right to life and the pregnant woman occurred in 1992. This case involved a 14-year-old girl by the name of Miss X against the Attorney General. The teenager fell pregnant due to being raped, and as a result of this became suicidal.
The parents of the girl at the centre of the X case had approached the Gardaí with queries about DNA testing in the event of possible future court proceedings. From there, the matter had made its way onto the desk of the Attorney General, who said the family's actions in seeking an abortion in the UK contravened the Constitution.
After this case had occurred, 2 referendums were passed in the Irish Constitution. One granted the right to travel, whilst the other granted the right to information surrounding abortion.
The Maastricht referendum is the most important question that the Irish people have to answer this year. It is not about killing babies. It is not about all the outrageous things that's been said about it. It's about the social and economic welfare of this nation, not alone for now, but for indeed the next decade and many decades beyond it.
The X case led to further debate in Ireland regarding abortion. Whilst many supported both the High Court and the Supreme Court's choices, there was still criticism amongst the Irish government.
At the time, another wording was produced in which it was suggested that we should say that the Constitution could not be used, anything in the Constitution could not be used to introduce abortion into this country. And that I would have found quite satisfactory, because that did not make the situation that we have now arrived at today, where the right to life of the unborn child is in fact appearing to supersede the right to life of the mother.
On the 6th of March 2002, the Protection of Human Life Pregnancy Act was given a referendum. This legislation would have allowed grounds for termination of a pregnancy by a doctor at an approved centre, if necessary to prevent the risk to the loss of the woman's life. However, under this act, suicide did not qualify as a ground for termination. This act was voted against by the Irish public. The pro-life campaign amongst pro-life advocates take part in events to promote their side of the ongoing debate regularly. The pro-life groups take part in an annual pro-life march. Before the annual pro-life march in March of 2018, I sat down with Christopher Shackleton, a pro-life advocate who is also a political activist and an advocate for Fianna Fáil, to discuss his side of the pro-life movement. What makes you anti-choice?
I firmly believe that mothers and the unborn should be protected. They're the most vulnerable in our society. I don't believe in abortion. I never have. I think it's cruel. I think it's barbaric. I do, however, understand that there are certain cases where abortion is necessary. It's proposed that it's 12 weeks. I think it'll become unrestricted over time. And it's not religious, it's not political, it's human. I think the unborn child and their mothers have to be protected.
So was there a particular incident that formed your pro-life opinion, or was it just based on solely your morals?
Based solely on my morals. It wasn't a particular incident in my own life, but I've spoken to many women who have had abortions. I've heard the trauma that they've suffered.
So having attended some pro-life marches, can you give me a description of the atmosphere and general overview, I suppose, of the public's response as it happened?
The last march was in July last year. The public's perception, I thought it was incredible. I don't know the numbers that were involved, but I think it's around 60,000 that they said attended. The mood was good. It was positive, and I think it'll be the same today.
Why do you think women should choose to not have an abortion, or to choose adoption over an abortion, given life-threatening circumstances or other serious circumstances?
Well, adoption, there are so many people, so many parents who are, unfortunately can't have children for many different medical reasons. They'd love to have children, and adoption for them, I believe, is very important. I think they should be able to adopt, and I think that anyone that is having a baby that doesn't want it, it's an unwanted pregnancy, should continue with their pregnancy and put that child up for adoption.
So why do you think your campaign will be the successor in the upcoming referendum?
I firmly believe that the Irish electorate are fully pro-life. The majority are fully pro-life. I don't think this is going to be a landslide win for either side, but I do believe that the pro-life campaign will probably win by 2 to 5%. The majority of Irish people are Catholic. They live their life by Christian morals and principles. I think that's what's going to win it at the end of the day. It's facts, it's medical facts and medical evidence that's actually going to win it for the pro-life side.
So recently, the Minister for Health, Simon Harris, suggested providing free contraceptives in order to prevent crisis pregnancies. So what's your opinion on this? I would fully agree with Simon Harris. I don't agree with him on an awful lot, but I would fully agree with his proposal. I think it's a no-brainer. It should have happened years ago, but I would probably imagine it has been stopped by the stronghold of the Catholic Church. I think that's what has stopped it, and would maybe possibly continue to stop it. But in my opinion, contraceptives should be free to everybody. What political party do you feel best represents your campaign's beliefs? I'm a member of Fianna Fáil. I have been a member of Fianna Fáil for many years. It would be a pro-life party, even though the leader, Micheál Martin, has come out and said that he would like to see abortion being legalised. I don't agree with him. The majority of members in the party don't agree with him. The majority of parliamentary members don't agree. Micheál Martin certainly doesn't represent me anymore. 2013 brought one of the most groundbreaking moves for the Irish government since the 1983 referendum occurred. In July of that year, the Protection of Life During Pregnancy Act was introduced into the Irish Constitution. This meant the ruling in the X case was given its full effect, giving a woman access to abortion where her life was at risk due to suicide. However, with success comes tragedy. The year before this act was introduced into the Irish Constitution, the death of 31-year-old Savita Halappanavar occurred in the University Hospital, Galway. Halappanavar was refused medical termination after being informed that she was miscarrying. According to her husband Perrine, Savita was denied so, as the fetus's heartbeat was present and was told, "This is a Catholic country." Savita passed away due to septicemia a week after being denied a termination.
We were elected as legislators, that's what we were here for, why we were in these houses, and with that ultimately does come responsibility. It is important that we do act to deal with the issue and the difficult issues caused for women and medical practitioners in this state by the current absence of legislation.
This case merely added fuel to the fire for the Irish Republic on the ongoing abortion debate. Protests and memorial services for Savita occurred around the country, primarily sparking further attention of the pro-choice movement.
This is a night that none of us hoped we would ever see. An occasion and a protest that none of us hoped we would ever have to engage in. That a beautiful young woman at the prime of her life, about to start a family, has been robbed of that life.
Just like the pro-life campaign, the pro-choice campaign also take part in events to promote their side of the debate. ROSA, which stands for Reproductive Rights Against Oppression, Sexism and Austerity, is one of the many pro-choice groups which exist nationally in Ireland. I sat down with Nicole McCarthy, a member of the group, to discuss the group's work toward the movement and all things pro-choice.
We are a socialist feminist group, so really what we stand for is real choice for women. Like, you know, obviously a choice for abortion is our main concern at the moment. We're fighting for the repeal of the 8th Amendment, but really we know that it goes further, and we realise a real choice is not given if you can't have a child due to your socio-economically deprived circumstances. You know, you're in an abusive relationship. These kind of things are not really actually given as choices here in Ireland, so it actually narrows down people's choices in pregnancy because of the factors that they're faced with. So I suppose Rosa realises that the battle wages on after this.
Was there any particular instant or an event or like a piece of information that forms your pro-choice opinion, or was it just morals?
I suppose my parents are quite good for it. Like, my mum would say, like, she herself would never have had an abortion, but she, like, who is she to stop anybody from making their own choices? So I suppose it's kind of been like slowed down through the generations. Like, my grandparents would be religious, so they would have been like, no, and then it kind of, you know, my mum realised then that it's right to give a choice, and then again it got down to me. I'm like, no way, everybody deserves a choice, you know. It was just evident.
Have you attended some pro-choice marches? And if you have, can you give me a description of the atmosphere and, like, I suppose, like, the general overview of the public's response as it happened?
Actually, I suppose related to the last question, so the pro-choice march, the one in, like, the annual one 2 years ago would have been sort of, I was kind of on the outskirts of Rosa, and then I went into that and I just felt the passion that was alive in the crowd that day, and it was so youthful and inspiring that I was like, wow, you know, I've made the right decision getting involved in this. And since then the marches have just been growing. They've been getting more militant in some ways. Like, for example, on International Women's Day last year, obviously leading from the strike for repeal, Rosa had done an abortion pill bus, which I'd been on. We'd been travelling the country, so we were obviously pumped for International Women's Day after something like that. We had a big demonstration out on at Central Bank, which was attended by loads of people because there was loads in town with the strike for repeal anyway. And then we went to the march then later on that evening, and one of my favourite moments from it was, obviously there was loads of shouting and screaming, but the Lewis works were going on at the time, and as we passed by Trinity College, everyone started grabbing the grates and like shaking them, and it just felt really like, yes, we are not letting this go. And you know, like, traditionally it's men who take these kind of stances and are like aggressive and stuff, and it was just nice to feel like the female voice strong and together, because obviously in modern media, you know, this portrayal of women is that, you know, we all hate each other and blah blah blah, so it's nice to be together in groups of thousands and be like, oh no, we're all fighting for the same cause.
So how do you feel about the news coverage that the pro-choice movement have been getting?
I mean, it's great to see that it is in the news so much. Obviously it's come to the forefront and it's selling newspapers, so they're still printing about it. But one thing that kind of worries me is the kind of recently pro-choice TDs, so like these people who've gone on these journeys, as they describe them, since the committee for repeal, and they seem to be getting a lot of airtime, and they're not really actually in the campaign. They don't know the facts, so they're kind of making uninformed interviews and stuff like that, which is kind of worrying, because, like, I mean, I'm sitting there listening to it and I'm like, well, I'm not a politician and I could do a better job at this interview than they are, you know, so that's kind of worrying, that they're not actually going to the full-on pro-choice TDs. Like, I want to see Ruth Coppinger on those newspapers, you know what I mean, instead of weak, I just decided recently because the public told me to, kind of pro-choice, you know.
What makes you so pro-choice?
I've always kind of been like really feminist as growing up and stuff, just because I suppose in the generation that we grew up in, it was like, yeah, 90s girl power, you have the same rights as boys, but then as you grow up and you know, realise that actually you don't, you know what I mean, you're subjected to sexual assault, you know, and it's those things that we still deal with here. The control over women's bodies is still in our constitution, so I feel like it's a big step towards equality, is giving women choices over their bodies and realising that we're not actually monsters who want to kill babies.
Why do you think that your campaign will be the successor in the upcoming referendum?
And the last time that we had an option to vote on this was 34 years ago now, I think, at this stage. So that's anyone who's of reproductive age didn't get a chance to vote in that. So I feel like, I mean, you see the movement, it's youthful, you know. I mean, us and our march on International Women's Day this year, and then I think it was like 3 days later they had the pro-life march, and if you look at videos from it, it's an older generation, it's people who are stuck in this Roman Catholic ethos that it's the guilt. So I think that because it's such a youthful movement and it's about giving women a choice, and like realistically, the facts of the matter is women still get abortions. So it's just, are you willing to export it, or are you willing to give here in Ireland safe medical care for women? Choice, pro-choice, means that you can still choose to get an abortion or to not get an abortion. It still leaves the option out there for both sides, whereas pro-life infringes on our rights. So I feel like hopefully the majority of the population will be able to see that.
Which political party do you feel represents your beliefs best?
So in the Dáil at the moment, the political party that I would be affiliated with would be Solidarity, who are in partnership in the Dáil with People Before Profit. So the TDs that are in the Dáil that are with Solidarity are also actually in the Socialist Party. So in terms of like representation in the Dáil, I would have to say Solidarity, but I'm also a member of the Socialist Party and their views go more socialist than Solidarity would. So in terms of a political party that represents me best, it would be the Socialist Party.
June 2017 brought the pledge from Taoiseach Léir Varadkar that a referendum on the 1983 abortion provision would occur.